Hey everybody, Brian Zane here with my review for Money in the Bank 2025. And hey, look at this. I'm able to get a quick turnaround time on the review this time around because I have a voice as opposed to the last pay-per-view I covered. There's a lot to talk about with this show, especially in the closing minutes of what happened, but we will certainly get to that in due time. Let's start out with the women's Money in the Bank ladder match. You got Stephanie Vaquer, Rhea Ripley, Naomi, Alexa Bliss, Roxanne Perez, and Julia. I loved Naomi's money attire, the kind of hybrid, the money outfit with the caution look. It's a great look for her. Vaquer wrestling her third match in 2 days because she wrestled on SmackDown and then the Worlds Collide show and then this one later in the same day. Very impressive. And it's crazy there are actually a few people on this show who also worked the When Worlds Collide show earlier in the day, which I'm like, I thought you had a pretty robust roster to avoid that sort of thing happening, but be that as it may. The action starts out pretty quickly, and then we get Alexa and Rhea sharing a moment. Vaquer surprises Julia and Roxanne with a springboard cross body at one point. Naomi with a nice face buster on the edge of the ladder. There's this moment in the match which made me laugh where Julia is trying to do like the curb stomp or like the face buster to Alexa into this ladder, leaning into the corner of the ring. The bump itself, not that impressive, but then like when she bumps into it, it causes this very slow timber of the ladder and it almost smashes into Julia. It could have been worse. Ripley goes on this big run. Roxanne with this scary last minute Hurricane Rana onto Ripley on the ladder. Then we get a Lionsault. Shea and Julia are putting Ripley into this ladder sandwich. They have a hard time getting it closed though. Then everyone buries Rhea under a bunch of ladders. Yep, open and shut case. That's going to put her away. Vaquer with this crazy looking dragon screw to Naomi who's hung up on the ropes. That looked really painful. Julia grabbing Vaquer mid-climb of the ladder, hitting this German suplex, then another one where she's in the ladder somehow, and then hits another German suplex while she's there. Really snug drop, stomach first by Alexa into the edge of the ladder. Ouch. Roxanne tumbles over the top rope just as Rhea Ripley emerges from the ladder pile. My favorite part of that is Roxanne is like holding onto the top rope like that, skin the cat, and she could very easily just get down and like find some other way to avoid it, but she's just like frozen in fears, trying to pull herself up. I'm like, just let go and like roll in. Rhea powerbombs Roxanne into Naomi, electric chair drop on Julia into the ladder. We have a ladder bridge in the ring, and you knew they were going to pull this off in the match here as Vaquer does the devil's kiss onto Rhea on the ladder. That feels like it's going to be a pretty viral moment. There's lots of fighting. We get the double ladder bridge, and we get stereo code reds on those bridges. That was neat, but then we get like another stereo finishers moment like a minute later, like you had to do it twice. Naomi shoving some gals off the ladder. She climbs up and grabs the briefcase to win. I give it 3.5 stars out of 5. Pretty darn solid way to open the show. I don't think it's the greatest women's Money in the Bank match, but I think it's somewhere in the middle, I would say. I'm really excited to see Naomi as the winner of the match. I think that she currently has like all the momentum out of those ladies, honestly. I think with the new coat of paint, the new layer of caution tape, as it were, I think there's a lot of stuff you could do with this version of Naomi as the briefcase holder. I think either champion is kind of in jeopardy right now. Probably more Tiffany Stratton at this point, but I think that, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where it goes from there. An impromptu match for the Intercontinental Championship up next as Dominik Mysterio defends against Octagon Jr. from AAA. This is a follow-up to what happened at When Worlds Collide earlier in the day in the trios match. Dominik Mysterio was at the show and he got into Octagon's face and they scrapped, and so Dom challenged him to a title match for later in the evening, and so that what brings us to here. Very early on, nice Asai moonsault by Octagon to the outside. Dom comes back, he ties Octagon's mask to the bottom rope and gets the stomping. I thought that was great. There's some Culero chants by the crowd. Nice corkscrew attacks by Octagon. Dom goes for the Three Amigos. It doesn't work. The 619 is evaded as well. One of my favorite lines of commentary in the night was, I think it was Pat McAfee describing Dom as a judgment boy. And all I could think about was then Dom saying, and then when I come back, I shall be a judgment man. Dom hits the 619 and the frog splash to win and retain this one. I give it 3 stars out of 5. I think it was a nice showing for Octagon Jr., for people who didn't catch When Worlds Collide and people who aren't familiar with his work. They did name drop his work in TNA as of late, though, which I thought was pretty cool. But that was a nice way to pad the card, certainly. Filling out 3 hours with 4 matches seemed like a tall order. So nice for them to kind of slip this match in here. Blake Howard, I saw on social media, he said that this match was the equivalent to Taka Michinoku versus the Great Sasuke at Canadian Stampede in Your House. And I'm like, you know what? That actually makes a lot of sense. I like that. They show a scene from earlier in the night where American Made is hanging out and they go, hey, let's put this sponsored ladder under the ring so our friend El Grande Americano can find it. Now look, I knew the story that, Slim Jim was going to sponsor the tables, but even still, in this current age of WWE as it is, where they sell every square inch of space available to sponsors, even that one still kind of surprised me, What are you going to say? Nothing's sacred. For the Women's Intercontinental Championship, it's Becky Lynch's last chance to fight for it as long as Lyra Valkyria is the champion here. And, of course, continuing the rivalry they've been having since back in the NXT days when Becky Lynch came down there and dropped the championship to her. The match starts out, and early on, Lyra doing that running dropkick to the outside she does, but Becky catches her and just drops her onto the floor. I thought it was a great cutoff. And Becky is just all over Lyra for a while in this matchup here. Lyra catches her at one point, hits a very nice snap neck breaker. Lovely way for Lyra to take that DDT by Becky a little later on. There's a deadlift superplex by Lyra. Becky landing a little low. Felt bad for her lower back there. Becky later gets a nice armbar and a great shot of the panicked look in Lyra's face at that point. Lyra going for a very strange looking ankle lock here. Lyra drapes Becky over the barricade, hits that leg drop onto her, and then later Becky catches her mid-air and hits a powerbomb. And it's this point in the match where I first hear some chants here. I could be wrong, but I thought this was the first time I recognized them. The "We Want Truth" chants in response to R-Truth announcing last week that he was going to be leaving WWE when his deal was up. And so a lot of people protesting that. People are pretty upset, and I'll have more on that in a little bit. But when I first heard that chant, I wasn't thinking about "We Want Truth." I was like, why do I think they're chanting "We want soup"? We want soup. We want soup. Fighting on the second rope, Becky hits a Superman handle slam. We get a kick out, a Nightwing on the floor. We nearly get a double count out. Man, wouldn't that be so funny if one of them just got in at the very last second and a photo finish. The second person doesn't actually make it back in time. We get a roll up by Lyra. Becky counters it but grabs the tights to win. New champion. And now, as per their agreement, Lyra has to raise the hand of the winner. She does it, and then Becky makes her do it a second time, and then, boy, Becky's getting greedy because she wants her to then, put the belt around her waist. So Lyra very begrudgingly puts it on around her waist and then catches her with a surprise German suplex, and then, as Michael Cole says, a German Nightwing. I give it 4 stars out of 5. I thought it was another great match in their rivalry, and boy, they spent a lot of time on commentary building up the maturation and the growth of Lyra Valkyria, since being called up to the main roster. They spent so much time belaboring that point, but I think it's true. It's very correct, and I think that this match was another great example of that. I thought that she looked really strong, even in defeat here, and I think it's a very sneaky play by Becky there, nice, clever, heelish way to win the belt, and check that off, going to put another bow on her very successful career. I think it's funny the negative reception that people have had to her as of late, which is kind of what she's using to fuel her current heel run. And it's just kind of funny to me because if you look at her experience as a champion and someone who does stay in that main event scene compared to other contemporaries, other of the horsewomen perhaps, I feel that more than anyone, she has been the most giving to her opponents, on average, in terms of building them up and making them legitimate and also putting them over well, I think, more than anyone else at the moment. So I think it's very silly, and it's, titles don't mean everything in that sense. It's like it's helping tell the story, and I think Becky does a good job with that. Moving on to the men's Money in the Bank ladder match. Again, another person pulling double duty on this show. You've got El Grande Americano (parentheses Chad Gable) taking on Penta and LA Knight, Andrade El Idolo, Seth Rollins, and Solo Sikoa. I love how throughout the whole match, Michael Cole is trying to be like the one lone voice of reason, saying that Chad and El Grande Americano are the same person, and they bring up how the fact that they both had their the same arm taped up heavily from Worlds Collide and this show, and then Wade Barrett says sympathy pains from El Grande Americano. And Wade gets way more unhinged as this match goes on. Everybody gangs up on Seth to start the match, just frenetic energy early on, many dives, and here's where they're already going off the deep end here, because Wade Barrett is then talking about the size of El Grande Americano's nipples. And then Cole has this great line where he says, "I've done a lot of research for a lot of matches. I've never had to research a man's nipples." Well, back in the Quizlemania days, that was actually very important research, Cole. You should have stayed on top of it. Americano with a great Dominator-type maneuver to Seth on the ladder. Solo slams El Grande onto the ladder in the corner. He mocks his taunts. He steals everyone's taunts in the match to Solo here. What is LA Knight even thinking grabbing the shortest possible ladder for this thing? CM Punk chants in the crowd as Seth goes on a brief run. Seth climbs a ladder, El Grande pushing him upward into an ankle lock. That was very unique. Andrade with a sunset flip powerbomb to El Grande, followed up with Penta hitting a superplex to Rollins into a ladder. Penta hits a destroyer on Andrade on the ladder bridge. Wade Barrett begins to talk about counting the rings around El Grande Americano's nipples, and just before I completely lose my mind, the fireball ladder is brought out from under the ring. Hey, we're on the go home, folks. We get the Terry Funk spot by El Grande. Penta and El Grande are on the top of the ladder. Holy shit, that is so high up. That is the Jeff Hardy Memorial ladder, folks. El Grande falls. Seth climbs up. We see El Grande slipping the metal plate into his mask, and then we get the most ridiculous sequence I think I've ever seen. So Penta's on the massive ladder. He's reaching up there, taking his time, by the way, because he's killing time. You've got LA Knight doing a slingshot to Chad Gable in the outside in the corner, but there's no room for him to go. So Chad has to do all this core work to sit himself up and then climb up the ladder that is up against the ring post, and then lean up this other ladder that Seth Rollins is holding on to, tilt onto that. Meanwhile, Penta is just standing there watching all this go down, and then El Grande just goes up and wham, headbutts Penta. Penta sliding down the ladder like he's sprinting, like sliding down in a video game when you don't want to do the one rung at a time thing. And then to follow it up, LA Knight gets there, climbs up, and hits this ridiculous back suplex onto Americano, and his head is millimeters away from coming crashing down onto the ladder below them. Jesus Christ, that was insanity. It started out so awkward and everything, and then it just got way and way more intense and way more insane, and that just was absolute bonkersville. Seth is signaling for his boys to make the save, and out come Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed. They clean house. Bronson breaks the fireball ladder. Oh no! Suddenly out comes Jacob Fatu and JC Mateo, aka the recently debuted Jeff Cobb. The big beefy boys are battling. Fatu with the pop-up Samoan to Bronson. He loves you, Solo. And then you see this moment where, Fatu is helping Solo get the ladder set up, taking their sweet ass time with this point. So Solo's climbing the ladder. Jacob grabs his ankle and he goes, "I hate you, Solo." And then just destroys him, beats his ass for 2 uninterrupted minutes. He hits the big moonsault, and then he slams him through the ladder, and then Fatu finally leaves. Seth breaking out another fireball ladder as the fans chant for CM Punk. Seth and LA Knight fight over it. Rollins hits the stop, climbs the ladder, and grabs the case. I'm going to give this one 3.5 stars out of 5. I think I would have ranked it higher, but I'm not going to, and I'll tell you why in a moment. This one certainly has the most stuff to happen in any Money in the Bank match in history. I mean, this is how you fill 3 hours with 5 matches. You just give the ladder match like buco amounts of time, and you give you all these different story beats. There was some good storytelling in this match, obviously. The stuff with Solo and Fatu is great. I think Seth winning makes all the sense in the world, because if you're aligned with Paul Heyman and Bronson and Braun, when you have the deck totally stacked in your favor and you're doing anything possible to like win and dominate, why wouldn't you? It's like Seth Rollins in The Authority all over again, with Kane and J&J Security, although I think this is a bit more elevated version of that. But here's the fatal flaw in the match, and the reason I didn't mark it as high as I would have otherwise, and it's the sponsored ladder. It's not even the match's fault, really, because if they didn't have a segment where they telegraphed that it was going to be involved, then I think when they pulled that out, it would have been more organic, or at least it would have, felt a bit more natural. But by having that scene that shows the ladder, hey, we're going to put this under the ring, that means everything leading up to that ladder coming out means dick all. Like, you could have just had the ladder like out and sponsored, and it would have been fine, and you wouldn't have had that problem. Here's my solution. TKO, I know you're watching this. You can thank me later. Next time you do this, don't just sponsor one ladder. You got to sponsor all the ladders, and not just with one company. Every ladder you see on TV should have a different company logo on it, and then you have them all engage in a bidding war, and whoever wins, that ladder gets to be used in the finish. And that becomes kind of win-win, because obviously TKO makes money, more money, they love that, and also it doesn't make a giant red flag as to which ladder, is going to be used at the end of the matchup. And don't run those segments beforehand saying that there's only one match, only one ladder with a logo on it. So keep your eye open for that one. I think that was a big problem as well. Well, WrestleMania is going back to Las Vegas next year after all. They withdrew their announcement for New Orleans and said, you know what, we made so much darn money in Vegas, we're going to do it again. So will I go back next year? Time will tell, but that was definitely an expensive trip. But moving on to the main event, it's Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso taking on the most evilest tag team in the world out to ruin wrestling once and for all, John Cena and Logan Paul. And, I've talked about this before in the Backlash review, and I'll say it again. The reason that the John Cena heel turn isn't working is because it's nothing we haven't seen before. It's just John Cena playing every, stock heel in WWE for the last, 15, 20 years. The same people he'd been fighting during that time in his prime. And so, I think it's, there's still time for them to right this ship. They can pull a few things out of the hat, and there's still time to save it. We'll see what happens in this matchup. But yeah, it's not giving us what I think we wanted out of a heel John Cena. It's not quite there yet. Cody comes out first, which is wild to think about when you look at all four guys. There's a "We Want Truth" chant early in the match. Why is Jey Uso representing France? We get a Logan Paul with a nice blockbuster onto Jey. When Cena's getting his heat on Jey, there's a dueling "You can't wrestle, yes he can" chant. And you know what? The "yes he can" people are right. It's not that he can't wrestle, it's that he chooses not to. That's the thing. I've always said that about, whenever there's a wrestler on TV that people just have a big general dislike for whatever reason, it's like, oh, they can't wrestle. It's like, no, they can. They just don't have to, because their character as a heel is they're kind of chicken shit, and therefore they don't wrestle good. The heels aren't supposed to wrestle as good as the faces, and that's something I think has been lost to time. Uso taking all kinds of heat in this one. Cena taking his time with the offense. Jey with the hope spots, but continues to take abuse. Suddenly we get this moment where Cena tags out, and then he gets in the corner. Then he tags himself back in with Logan Paul, and then they just start having this fight, out of nowhere. There's this total, blow up between the two of them, where Cena's like, I'm trying to teach you. And Logan's like, then teach me. And John's like, you want to be taught? Where did this come from? And while they're bickering, Jey makes the hot tag to Cody Rhodes. Why did Cena just become like the dumbest man alive all of a sudden? Logan almost breaking his ankles on the buckshot attempt. He walks right into a super kick. Across Rhodes to Cena, Logan goes for a splash, but he hits his own man instead. Walks into a spear by Uso. Logan summoning Vanguard 3 to get that cool drone shot. He grabs the drone, but then he gets caught by Cody into a Spanish fly. So we get the point of view from the camera, which was pretty brilliant. And after that, I'm like, okay, they have to retire that now. Like the drone and Logan like poses with it. Like the only other way you could like subvert that is if like mid-flight someone just walks up and just like bam, knocks it out of the sky with a chair. Another AA by Cena to Rhodes. We get a kick out, and then Wade calls John the Grinch of professional wrestling. First of all, very timely reference in early June. Second of all, who is going to do the artwork, the fan art of that? They're fighting on the announce table. Cena taking a spear by Uso onto one of them, then Logan hitting the Acai moonsault onto Jay on the announce table. Acai means Maverick. Cena has the title belt and he dinks Cody with it. Suddenly a mystery man runs in and attacks Cena, and it's R-Truth. What in the heck? He hits Cena with the belt. Crossroads by Cody. Team Babyface wins. Man. God dang it. I mean, WWE, you've done it again. Son of a bitch. Every time I think I'm like on the verge of being done and thinking, you know what? Why do I sit here and watch these shows and review them and whatnot? You do something like this. You pull something out of your ass that gives you a hell of a surprise and just makes you end the night with a big smile on your face. Like, man, hadn't felt that watching your stuff in a while. That was great. That was a really cool way to end the show. R-Truth coming out and getting some revenge on Cena for, you know, what happened at Saturday night's main event. And then the story of Truth's release and whatnot. And I don't want to hear anyone say, we got worked, you know, we got fooled. No, that's not the case. Like, R-Truth, he didn't leave the WWE when he tweeted he was going away. Like, the contract was not being renewed. He is still under contract. And, you know, I think people just kind of assumed he wasn't going to be on TV anymore. It's certainly a heck of a twist that people I don't think saw coming, because like in the world of wrestlers leaving and announcing they're leaving and everything, like who actually, you know, comes back after that, you know? So I think that was really cool. They really caught people by surprise by that. I think that was actually a really clever move by them. Still have a long way to go with this Cena storyline. I'm not saying it's immediately better, but I think that what we saw tonight was a huge step in the right direction. Like, it's actually, wow, there might be some hope here. Now, like, does this mean, like, you know, the payoff to this is R-Truth beats John Cena? I don't think so. But again, it's a fun little side plot. It fits with the last year of Cena. So who knows? But I think, again, after what the last couple of months we'd seen from that, I think this was definitely a nice, welcome change of pace. And yeah, I think it was a great way to end the match and the show. That said, my grade for Money in the Bank 2025 is a B. Really solid matches across the board on this show. For some pretty fun Money in the Bank matches this year. I think, again, the men's Money in the Bank match was certainly the most dramatic, had the most stuff thrown into it, but that latter is a fatal flaw again. And I think it wouldn't have been a problem if they just didn't have that scene beforehand. That's my opinion on that. I think the main event, it started out kind of blah for me, but then they gave you just enough cool things to keep you hooked and invested. And again, that finish with R-Truth getting involved was just a very welcome surprise, and certainly got a lot of people talking, and that reaction in the crowd at LA was something else. Just really cool. And like, that me and the people who were in this office, you know, watching it as it was going on, it was vocal. We were definitely excited. So all in all, really strong edition of Money in the Bank this year. I think it should also be worth noting that I started the show an hour late and like fast forwarded through a lot of the hype packages and the ads and whatnot. So it was a shorter experience for me too. That might have helped as well. But I think it does set up a lot of things for the SummerSlam coming up in August. But what did you think about Money in the Bank? And of course, the big shocking moment at the end with R-Truth. I want to hear all about that in the comment section below. Be sure to give the video a thumbs up if you like it, subscribe to Wrestling with Regret, and of course, hit that bell icon to get all the notifications. I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.